Welcome to another episode of Ask the Zamboni Experts. I'm your host, Marty Elliott. Along with me today is Jim Thomson, former NHL player with the Los Angeles Kings. Good morning, Jim. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, Marty. Thank you for having me.
God bless. Thank you for being on board. Greatly appreciated. Well, let's get into this, Jim. Let's talk a little bit about your past and your hockey experiences and being drafted, correct me if I'm wrong, in 1984-85 with the Washington Capitals, but you're formerly from out west outside of Edmonton, I believe.
I am. I grew up in a trailer park. It's called Westview Village, Marty. It's outside of Edmonton. And we moved there in 72 from Edmonton. And that was my upbringing. If people have seen the Trailer Park Boys, it wasn't much different than that. A very unique lifestyle growing up. And that's where I learned how to play hockey and all the things that, have taught me of how to help people today. A lot of life lessons in that trailer park helped me today.
Yeah, life lessons, and we're definitely going to get into that and talk about what you're doing as far as an ambassador and sharing what your experiences are with youth and bringing them from where they've been, where they are, and where the light is at the end of the tunnel, if you will. Let's talk a little bit, Jim, if you don't mind, about your experiences in the NHL. You were drafted by the Washington Capitals. Maybe you can kind of give us a timeline and what the highlights of that career was for you, Jim.
So we'll go back to playing junior in the OHL. The NHL wasn't on my radar. I was, that was my dream, but I was striving to play junior hockey, which I accomplished. And one day my coach, Tom Martin, came to me and said, listen, you're starting to get some interest from some NHL teams, which was a defining moment in my life because, again, I got to junior. I wasn't a high profile player. I was doing okay, Marty. And when I heard that, then, the light went on to go, wow, this could really be real. So draft day in the trailer in Westview Village, we had a draft party. My agent had told me I'm going to be drafted, anywhere from the 3rd to 5th round. And, that was at a time when a lot of the Europeans were starting to be drafted. So if you're rated in that in North America, you're dropping down, which I did. But that being said, TSN covered the first 3 rounds of the draft back then. So we're all there watching it on TV. Obviously, it goes off. That was in the afternoon. 9:15 at night. Everybody has left the party. And my best friend and my mom and I are the only ones there. And I kind of just gave up and thought, you know what? It's not happening. It was a big disappointment. And lo and behold, my the late Jack Button phoned me and said, welcome to the Washington Capitals. We drafted in the 9th round, and that was a memorable moment. So from there, I go through a 10-year pro career. Highlights would be, my first goal in Chicago against Eddie Belfour. My very first game, Marty, the late Brian Murray called me up to cover Mario Lemieux, which is a story I can tell another time. But, when you get called up to the NHL, I was a physical player. I thought I was going up and I was going to fight Jay Caulfield or Rick Tocchet, guys that they had in their lineup. And that's why they were calling me up. And after the morning skate, Brian called me in and said, you're going to cover Lemieux tonight. So it's a surreal time, your first game, and now you're covering. At that point, Lemieux was the best player in the world. Gretzky had gone through some injuries. So from there, and then playing the mighty Edmonton Oilers, where I'm from, I was with Washington. I scored in front of my mom on Grant Fear, a great Hall of Fame goalie in Northlands Coliseum. That was a great moment. But then, probably the highlight was with my idol, Wayne Gretzky, watching him with the Oilers, getting to play with him in LA, and going to the Stanley Cup final in '93 would definitely be the highlight. That was, we ended up losing to Montreal, Marty, but that was a time that I sit back and I go, wow, that's really cool.
So it's talking about 1993 because I do remember the series prior to going up against Montreal, and I do recall that game at Maple Leaf Gardens. Were you you were dressed for that game, I believe, if I'm not mistaken? Were you not, Jim?
No, I was dressed for Game 5 that we lost in double overtime. Glenn Anderson scored.
Right.
So Game 7. Are you talking about the high stick?
Yeah.
Yeah. So game 6 in LA.
Yes.
And basically, we watched it in the dressing room, and we knew as hockey players that, oh boy, this could be, game ejection for Wayne and that
Yep.
whole thing. We know Kerry Fraser admits that he made a mistake. And we also know that Wayne scored the winning goal. And it was a unbelievable time to go back to Toronto. And if I played I played for the Toronto Marlboros in the OHL, so our home rink was Maple Leaf Gardens.
Right. Yeah.
So to go back there and playing into, even though I wasn't dressed, to witness a Game 7 that Wayne claims was his greatest NHL game to date. In his, at that point, he said that's the greatest game I ever played. Was unbelievable to watch what he did in Game 7, and scoring off of I think the defenseman was Elliott. Put it off his Dave Elliott, sorry.
Dave Elliott,
put it off his skate. I think that was meant to be. That's what these special players do, and it was just a surreal time. So back to the high stick. I always go back to, I think it was Game 3, Marty, when Gilmore headbutted McSorley behind the net, which also could have been a match penalty and a suspension. So, but I believe that Toronto Maple Leafs, this is nothing against the Montreal Canadiens of that year. They had the best goalie in the world. Mm-hmm. I just believe the matchup, if Toronto would have beat us, I believe they would have won the cup that year. I thought they had the deeper team, and Potvin was, obviously doing great things. So, yeah, Toronto came very close to winning that, getting the monkey off their back for sure.
Yeah, and it's a great Cinderella story if you want to refer to it as that, because you and I are the same age, and watching that in 1993, it was pretty exciting. The only thing I regret, if me personally ever hearing, was Kerry Fraser later on in life actually admitting that he made the wrong call. I wish he had kept that. I wish he never had brought that out and stayed with it. It would have, it just would have made speculation so be, but it is what it is. And
well, it's funny because I've had this debate. I disagree with you because I feel at the time the pressure, the greatest player in the game, and do I kick him out? Don't I kick him out? No, I didn't see it. I understand what his thought process was, but I love the honesty of, you know what? I knew it. I felt it. I should have done it, but I didn't. I want to hear that. Do you know what I'm saying? So I respect your opinion, but I loved it when he came out because we're sitting there going, how can he not call this? Like, how can he saw it. Like, you watch his eyes, see the stick come up, and again, I'm not debating with you. I like the other angle of, he came out and was honest and said, you know what, I'll go down in the history of screwing the Leafs' chances of winning Cup up, which he did.
Well, I sat beside him, believe it or not, Kerry Fraser I speak of. I sat beside him on a flight to Las Vegas back in 1987, and I recognized who it was due to the hair. And I said to Mr. Fraser, and yeah. And I said, what are you going to Las Vegas for? He says, I need a holiday, and then I got to get over to referee some games for the Kings. I said, oh, pleasure meeting you. But anyways, that being said, let's talk a little bit about your experiences. Jim, have you driven a Zamboni? Share your experiences with the audience.
So it's not actually a Zamboni. So what happened was I grew up right by a rink called Parkland Arena, a rink Rod Matthews and Dave Matthews built. And it was walking distance from the trailer park. So I was a rink rat. And I went in there and I started at, 11 years old. I started timekeeping. That was my first job. So I would timekeep all the men's games Monday to Thursday. Then I graduated to sweeping the dressing rooms, and I lived in the rink. Yep. So at 14, I believe, Marty, 14, 15, I got graduated to driving the farm tractor with the bucket on the back. And what happened was, to keep the front end down, they had these big weights weighted to the front of the tractor. So I went through my training, and I was doing great, and lift the bucket, and taking it off the ice, similar to what a Zamboni does today. So as I'm flooding for a men's league game, I'll never forget it. It was on a Tuesday night, and people are up in the sports bar, so it's kind of like you're the show, right? So I'm up there and I'm driving this tractor around the rink, and all the people are upstairs watching, their husbands or what have you play. So being cocky and going too fast, I panicked. I came into the corner and I lost all control, hit the gas instead of the brake. So I hit the boards with these big weights, Marty. And at the end of it all, the damage, a big hole in the boards, the rest of the games were canceled. And it was a lesson that never get too confident on a Zamboni, ever.
Or never be too young and inexperienced to drive a Zamboni. So I've shared this before in podcasts, but my experience similar to yours, Jimmy. But I was 8 years old, and I haven't told you this yet. So I was 8 years old. My mom was the hockey manager for the Daryl Sittler Walt McKechnie Hockey School in London, Ontario, where I'm born and raised at Hockeyland. So I too was a rink rat, and living in the back Zamboni room with the operator during the days, daytime, while my mom was working in the office. Um, Back then, our machines, the Zamboni machines, were engaged in gear if you turned it on. And the case was the operator said to operate back, don't touch anything. Well, as an 8-year-old, you got this big machine in front of you, and get yippee-ki-yay, get on top of it, turn the ignition over. But no one said it was in gear already. On the roll down door, then the boards opening up to the
Oh,
ice. I went through both, and Brad Marsh, Rob Ramage, Daryl Sittler, and Walt McKechnie out on the ice teaching a bunch of kids. Well, needless to say, the rest of my summer that year wasn't very pleasant. The last thing my mother said was, "Wait till your father gets home." So
yeah.
my life as a Zamboni driver and working for Zamboni started at a really young age as well.
Wow.
So that
Wow.
was,
Wow. Wow.
yeah, that was the experience. Enough
Yeah,
about me. Let's talk more about you. Let's talk about present time, Jim. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you're presently the owner of the Aurora Tigers. Is that correct, Jim?
that's correct. Yeah, my
Yeah.
wife and I bought it 6 years ago, and it's a lot of entertainment, a lot of hard work. Junior hockey is, a unique business, we'll call it, and you got to work really hard on sponsors and really hard on recruiting, and it becomes a full-time job, Marty, to run the business.
Hmm.
And we have good years, we have off years, we have young years, we have veteran years, all these different things. Not much different than the NHL, where are we going for it, or are we going to go young? And so it's a lot of fun with the different strategies that you come up with every year. But yeah, I've really enjoyed it.
And the opportunity, which is your focus and your pride and joy now, is working with younger individuals to be able to watch them develop and under your wing, as far as your experience that you certainly can share with those players that are on board. Let's take it over to the other side, Jim, that I know is near and dear to your heart, mine as well, being on the other side of it. Let's talk about you as an ambassador, talking about youth, talking about mental illness. Specifically, you're the advisory board member of Your Life Counts. Why don't you share your experiences, Jim? What put you in that role? Why you're in that role, which is very obvious as far as doing the stewardship and being an ambassador to share and help people. But can you share more about that life and that life cycle, Jim, with the audience?
Yeah, it's interesting. So quickly, I went through some major obstacles in my life, Marty. I became a drug addict. Became an alcoholic at a young age. Got out of it. Got back into it. Was basically suicidal. Black hole.
Hmm.
Awful place I put myself in. I was very fortunate and blessed to find a way to get out of it. I'm 13 in my 13th year of sobriety, and I feel and I believe that the NHL wasn't Jim Thomson's calling. I believe it's a platform to help me help other people with problems. And so, to answer your question, I'm involved in so much, and I say one life at a time. So through interventions, through guest speaking, through Your Life Counts, through the homeless shelter, out in from the cold, sorry, and all these different things, just planting seeds, and we want to help everybody if you can. And anytime I go in and talk or inspire a group, I tell them if I plant one seed today, I've helped the world, and that's kind of what I believe, that it doesn't cost anything. It's time, and I just, we need to do more. We need to do more have more education on mental health and what people are going through. And as we know, Bell, let's talk. Talking does so much for somebody who's fighting their demons inside. So any way I can help, and I'm asked to help in so many different areas and so many different things. And before we got on, I was 2.5 hours on the phone this morning with a whole bunch of different issues, and it's rewarding to help, and that's why I say one life at a time. And I really, really I'm inspired by it, Marty. I live for it in any way I can help somebody.
Yeah, very humbling, and kudos to you, Jim. It's I know that you and I both have the same acquaintances that we talk to on a daily basis, and without sharing names and that, but God bless them and their strength and continuing the path of positivity and reaching out and talking and asking for help. It's great to know that people like yourself, Jim, are there to guide them and let them open up to someone that doesn't judge, that's been there, done it, had the experience, and it is life changing. And I can't say enough kudos to you, Jim. Jim,
Thank you for that.
yeah, hey, my pleasure. Anything else, Jim, that you want to share with the audience about what else you're doing regarding your hockey school? I believe you're involved with an academy presently here in the GTA.
Yeah, so King Heights Academy is an existing school that's moved into the high school and sports. So myself and former NHL player Darcy Tucker are the NHL ambassadors for this academy, and it's a beautiful. I call it a beautiful lifestyle for any student. They go to school, they get to play sports, everything is done in the day. And it's a beautiful. I call it a way of life. So I'm involved in that. I do a lot of work there behind the scenes in the hockey program, Marty, and same as I do in real life. If there's issues, I love to deal with the issues and help these young people get through, their obstacles and their little, hills that they got to climb, and helping them and getting over that hill is very rewarding, as I said. But yeah, that's one thing. I have my own program, Jim Thomson's Dreams Do Come True, and that stems from Don Cherry one night years ago on Hockey Night in Canada. My boys and I are sitting there watching Hockey Night in Canada, and Don Cherry says, "Shame on all you coaches and parents who tell your kids they can't make it." He said, "Kids dream and dreams do come true." And I went, bingo. So I drew up this picture, which I now got on my arm, and it's all my 6 NHL teams, and at the bottom it says Dreamer, which I was, and at the top I put Dreams Do Come True, because it came true for me. And so what that is all about is I do a lot of training on ice, off ice, mentoring. If people want to see what that's about, they can YouTube Jim Thomson's prospect camps. Jim Thomson 33 is my Twitter and Instagram, where they can see a lot of the videos and a lot of what I do. I post a lot of positive messages, Marty, every day, and I'll tell you why I do it. People are like, "Why do you do that?" It's funny. Some of my friends and acquaintances call me or text me, say, "Are you all right?" And wondering, if my messages are pointed at me. But what I tell everybody is this: when I post something in the morning, I try to do it in the morning. It's positive, number one, for everybody, but it makes me feel better when I'll give an example. Marty private messaged me saying your post made my day. So it's not about anything but helping people who are struggling with anxiety, what we talked about, depression, all these things, a little positive energy. And it's beautiful to get the messages back just saying you really helped me today. So you know what? We need more positive in this time, right?
Amen to that, Jimmy. You've touched my life, and I read them every morning. So thank you very kindly. And folks, if you have the opportunity, follow Jim Thomson. his messages every morning definitely help me, because we all have issues. We all work through different things, but just that small little tidbit, that small little reading, makes a difference. Makes a difference in my day, Jim. And
I really appreciate that.
I thank you. I thank you. I gotta ask you this question off the side, Jim. Did you and Melrose ever have a bet for the best mullet?
No, but I got a good story for it.
Oh, I want to hear it.
So, what's funny is after game six.
Hmm.
So no, sorry, it was after game wasn't six. That was in LA. It would have been maybe five.
In Toronto?
Yeah. So we played. Let me go back. We started in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in Toronto.
Yeah, you
It was
guys
one of the
nice.
games I didn't dress. But here's what's funny about the story. So me and two of the players, my teammates, were walked out of Maple Leaf Gardens, and everybody thought I was Barry because of the hairdo from behind.
No doubt.
And the verbal bashing that I got, I shared it with Barry afterwards, right? But they called me thinking I was Barry the worst names, and you this and you this. This was after him and Burns got into that
Oh
beef,
yes,
right?
yeah.
Remember the beef?
That's
Oh
after
yeah,
the twirly.
Toronto
Yeah.
wanted blood from Barry Melrose, but yeah, we had the same hairdo, and I got in the cab, and the boys were like, "You better cut your hair."
Honestly, you look at the two of you, and yeah, you definitely both went to the same barber. I love it.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Well, I just found out that actually Barry actually did a tour of our plant down in Paramount, California, and he had his nice mullet with a nice shiny purple suit. So good on you, Barry Melrose. Welcome to
Yeah.
1993. Hey, Jimmy, I got to thank you so kindly for coming on board. There's so much more to talk about, and would love to have you back. Is there anything else you want to share with the audience before I let you go, Jimmy?
No, I just believe, Marty, first of all, thank you for having me and your crew. In this time, times are tough for a lot of people, and there is going to be a light at the end of it all for all of us. And I just say this, a kind gesture a day can make it change a person's outlook on that day. And that can change a person's outlook on a whole bunch of different things. And that's what we got to understand. So kindness is the word. Respect is the word, and let's help each other get through this till the end, and we can get back to real living. And keep up the great work, Marty.
Amen, Jim. God, I can't speak louder than that. That's basic, but so true, and great values to that. Well, Jim, I want to thank you for spending time with us today. We want to thank everyone for listening in another episode of Ask the Zamboni Experts podcast. If you have a question for one of our experts or an idea for future episode, please email your questions or requests to info@zamboni.com. For more information or additional podcast episodes, please visit zamboni.com/podcasts or search Ask the Zamboni Experts on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. This is Marty Elliott, your host. Thanking Jim Thomson, former NHL player with the Los Angeles Kings. Wishing you an ice day.